Today I'm going to be talking with Joanna Herman.
Hey, y'all. Hey.
She is a local teacher here in Ouachita Parish. She attends First West, where Joanna is part of the worship team and choir. She also helps out with the women's retreat in her area that really deal with a lot of different churches, not just one church. But she's on the helping team too. So she is a big helping person.
Yes, I love to help all the way.
Yeah, busy little bee. And you work with little ones too? Is that the age range you work with?
So yes, I actually teach pre-K. Yeah. Yeah. When people tell me that, I'm like, their response is either, oh my gosh, you must love it, or oh my gosh, I don't see how you do it. So it's one or the other.
Well, I have a person that's going to be a pre-Ker, so I feel like I'm right there with you. I mean,
It's
I don't know.
An age, for sure.
It's an interesting age.
They definitely keep you on your toes. So.
Yes, lots of learning. But I'm so glad that we're finally able to meet. We've been trying to have this conversation a few times, but just life events been getting in the way. But I'm glad we're finally here to do it.
Yes, I'm excited. Thank you for asking me. You know, it's going to work out when it's supposed to work out. And I'm just excited to be here today and make it happen.
Yeah. All right. So tell us, where does your story begin?
So my event that we're going to talk about today happened back in 2022 when my husband and I decided to separate after 7 years of marriage, and I was 37 at the time.
Yeah. And I'm about that age right now. So, Caleb and I, it's almost 7 years. So I feel like I'm right where you were those years ago. So man, what were some things that weighed you down like during that time?
Well, during that time, I was struggling with a lot of different things. One was the fear of the unknown, just because I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen in my marriage. Like I said, we were separated at the time, trying to kind of figure out, you know, what our next step was going to be, if we were going to be able to work this out, or if we were going to end up in a divorce. If we did end up divorced, you know, as a single person, it's like, you know, am I going to be able to support myself? You know, that was definitely a scary thing to think about financially. Where am I going to live? Thankfully, my parents live close. I'm sure maybe they wouldn't have minded if I stayed with them for a little bit. But thankfully, it didn't come to that.
Yeah.
I was also kind of worried about how I was going to handle being alone again. We had been married for 7 years. We had dated 2 years before that. So we had been together almost 10 years at that point. So just being on my own again, you know, I didn't know how I was going to handle that. And then, you know, being able to wonder if I was going to find somebody to love me this late in life, because, you know, I'm pushing 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I do know.
It's coming up. And I just wasn't sure, you know, what that was going to look like for me. So there was a lot of fear of the unknown. I had a lot of fear of judgment from others, you know.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure, serving on the worship team and in the choir, you know, what people would think as a divorced person. You know, sometimes I feel like, and it's probably not anything that they were putting on me, it's what I put on myself. But I just wasn't sure what other people were going to think about me, and if I was going to be less qualified to do that because of being divorced.
Now, had you always been on the worship team? Because I know you born and raised at our church.
I did.
First of us, but I don't know if you had, you know, you and your husband went to a different church for a time and then came back to it.
Right. So every church I've gone to, because I've gone to a few since I graduated high school and I left First West, I have served on the worship team at some point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's kind
definitely
of
qualified. I mean, you have a great voice, because I'm in the choir as well, but me and a few others were like, we try to get next to Joanna because we know Joanna's on key and in the right spot. And we're like, we don't know.
Right.
And we know you do.
Well, it's always been something I've loved to do, whether it be leading or singing in the choir. I mean, I've grown up singing. I sang in the kids choir at First West when I was in elementary school. So that's really always been a passion of mine. But like I said, I just wasn't sure, you know, how people would, if they would see me differently, you know, being in that position if I ended up being divorced.
Yeah.
And then I also dealt with a lot of shame because obviously, spoiler alert, we did end up getting divorced. And I was just really cautious to who I shared that information with, because I didn't want everybody to know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I also felt like, you know, this kind of wasn't supposed to happen to me. And so, you know, it was just like,
I mean, I don't think we get married thinking that's going to happen.
Absolutely not.
That's like the last thing. You're like, it's never going to happen to me.
Absolutely. Like, for sure. We never went into that process together thinking that was how it was going to be. But for us, it did. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of one of those things. And it's not something fun to talk about, you know, so I just kind of kept it to myself, like I said, other than like a few trusted friends and obviously our families knew.
Right.
But once again, like I just didn't want people to think of me a certain way, you know, because of that. So,
yeah.
So
what was like the toughest part to process? I mean, that's a lot, you know. I mean, you shared a life with somebody for almost 10 years. That's a lot of things that have happened, and not all of them were bad.
Right, exactly.
You know, and so it's just a lot. And then the things you just talked about are things not even related to the marriage.
Right. It's the after. Yeah. And that was the hard part, like you said, for a long time, because we were together for 10 years and it wasn't all bad. You know, there were a lot of good times in that time, and you've gotten used to sharing your life with this person, and then all of a sudden they're not there. So, and not only are they not there, but the family's not there. I had the best in-laws. I still love them to this day. And so, you know, it was just a lot of things like that you envisioned your life being, and all of a sudden it changed. We didn't have kids, but like I said, it's just you saw your life go in one place and end up somewhere totally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really hard to process through, just the new reality of what my life was going to be. And then, like we said, I carried around a lot of shame and disappointment because I felt like I had done things the right way, or so I thought, just to make the marriage last. You know, when I was in my 20s and I didn't date a lot of people because I was very selective, and I feel like very high standards. People will judge you for that, but I feel like that's where my standards need to be for myself. And then we'd also met at a young adult ministry at the church we attended at the time. We went to church together. And so for me, I felt like I had done everything to make sure like this marriage lasted. But the thing is those are my standards. Those weren't God's standards.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too, is maybe it was how I needed to prepare in my way, but not in his.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my parents got divorced when I was in first grade. And while they had a great co-parenting relationship that I'm super thankful for, it was something that I promised myself that I would never go through a divorce, no matter how long I'd waited to find that person, because I felt like I didn't want to have to go through what they went through, even though we were young at that time. Like, we don't really remember a whole lot of it. And like I said, I don't think it was a bad relationship. It just didn't work. But it was just something I thought I was protecting myself from going through.
Yeah.
And then the shame came from a lot of worrying about, like I said, what others were going to think of me, because I felt like I was the last person they probably would have expected this to happen to. And like I said, I've kept that kind of close to myself because, you know, like I said, it's not the best thing to talk about. You don't want everybody knowing about your business. You want to share the social media part.
Yeah, the highlight reel.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to share the bad stuff that's going on. So I think some people were kind of surprised, you know, when everything kind of happened.
Yeah.
It was just, it was a lot to go through at the time.
Yeah. Well, I know for myself, like some of these words you're saying, I'm like, it hit me, but they're hitting me for like different areas of my life, because I've had some of the same thoughts where I thought I could secure it myself. And then life told me, no, you don't actually have control over that. And it was very hard to handle that, knowing that there was nothing that I could do to secure the outcome I wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's what you were saying. Oh, that's really triggering, because like that's exactly that whole spiel. That's how I felt, but a totally different category. So, man.
Well, that's the crazy part about life, I feel like, is this situation can be in so many different parts. And like you said, like, we want to control things and it to go a certain way. And so it's really difficult, I feel like, sometimes just to let go, but realize the way that you wanted it to be might not be the best way. That's kind of what I had to see through that.
Well, and you were mentioning just a minute ago, like, you had high standards, but it wasn't necessarily God's standard.
Right.
And so just having like, I had to actually ask God what he thinks about the situation and let him pilot that. And my thing, I didn't do that.
Right.
You know, like,
you know, we think we know best, and that's not always the case.
Yeah. And it wasn't, they're not even bad things. Like, you know, your marriage and having a good spouse and all those kinds of things, those are not bad things that you were, you know, wanting for yourself. And for me, not the thing that I was doing wasn't like bad things or whatever, but like, it's always important to, you know, talk with the big man. Seek him first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lord, when you don't, it can be very difficult.
Yeah. But back to your story, when were things finalized? Because a minute ago you said like that was in 20...
Right. So we separated in
22?
November 22.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then our divorce was finalized in May of 2023 because we didn't have any kids. We did not have any kind of property or anything together. We were renting at the time.
Okay.
And then we didn't have a covenant marriage. And so ours only took 6 months once we were separated for a full 6 months.
Yeah, because I know for some other, like, it's really long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of thankful that it was, it was an amicable split. I mean, we're still cordial together to this day, but I was thankful that it was just a quick process and, just cutting the cord a little bit.
Yeah. Moving forward.
Yes.
All right. So, what was your turning point in all of this? Because, you mentioned basically having to deal with a humbling episode in your life and reevaluate and just figuring out how to move forward.
So my hope came from the fact that I had to remind myself that this was just a chapter and not a story, and it was not going to last forever. And I think the most important thing I learned was I'm not defined by my circumstances. Just because I am divorced doesn't disqualify me from anything that God has for me. And then what encouraged me was to keep pressing on because I knew that while this might be hard and difficult for a time just to go through, I would be stronger in my faith on the other side. And God was the only one who could truly heal me during this time and heal my heart in the way that only He could.
Yeah. I love the choice of words where, it's just a part of your story. Again, like I really identify with that. So you're touching on me here. Because I've had some things in my life as well where I'm like, that's a blemish.
Yeah.
I would rather people not know about that or does this disqualify me from doing anything? And I've had to go through a similar reckoning of like, no, only God can really define who I am.
Exactly.
And that is just a chapter, not the whole of me. And I feel like we have to look that way, I think sometimes about our Bible characters, what if we just knew of Moses as the murderer?
Right.
But we don't. Like that's like one chapter of his life that I'm sure he regretted. But that's not the whole of him.
For sure.
And so I think that's an important thing for us to remember about ourselves. And that's how God sees us too. He's not like, oh, Joanna, that one time in first grade.
Right.
Or that one time when you were 37. Or that one time.
He doesn't hold it.
He doesn't do that.
Lord.
Yeah, he doesn't do that. He looks at the whole of us and loves us in that way. And so I think it's important that we love ourselves in that way. And I think we don't always do that.
No, absolutely.
Or to others, we don't do that. But we should, because that's how God loves us. So yeah. Were there any other Bible verses or songs or just people that influenced you and helped you out also during that time?
Yeah. So one Bible verse that I clung to during this season a lot was Isaiah 43:2. And it was, when you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. And when you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up and the flames will not consume you. Because like I said, anytime you're going through a difficult time, whether it be something like divorce or, it can be addiction, it can be all the things. I mean, we have so many things in this world right now that can hinder us down. It's just a comfort for me at that time to know that He is always with me when I go through these things, because it can be, like I said, a very lonely time. But to know, that He is with us and He will see us through those times.
Yeah.
Was definitely something I had to cling to. As far as songs, oh my gosh, I could go on and on about worship songs because,
you're singers though, yeah.
Girl, this worship music, I tell you what, has done a story in my life. One that spoke to me specifically was Believe for It by CeCe Winans during this time. Because I had gone to First West. I was visiting at the time when I was kind of staying with my parents some. And they had a group from Mobile, Alabama come.
I remember them.
Ooh, girl.
Love them.
Yes. Well, they sang Believe for It. And I'd never heard this song before, but I tell you, I had tears streaming down my face. And I normally don't have that reaction during a worship time. But it was, I think, just what I was going through at that time. And they were singing these words. And when it's saying, you said it, I believe it, you said it, it is done. It was kind of just like, I'm just giving this to you, God, because like I've said earlier, what I might want to have happen, which is obviously for my marriage to be restored, you might not want that. And I have to trust that my will is not your will and your will is better than mine. So that was really, oh my gosh, one of the songs. Still to this day, I can hardly listen to it when we sing it at church without crying, just because of the truth that it spoke to me during that time. And then as far as the people that have influenced me, my mom is a big one. I'm going to try and get through this without crying because I just love my mom. And if you don't have a praying mom, oh my goodness, you got to find you one, even if it's an adopted mom, like find you a praying mom. She was a huge influence on me during this time, more than she already had been, because I was going through this, but she was kind of being able to help me navigate through that time.
Yeah.
Because she had walked in my shoes before. Now, granted, she had my sister and I, so she was a single parent. But no matter what life might have been like during that time for her, she was always a positive light for myself and my sister, and showed us how, with God's help, He was all that we needed. And so my mom has had a huge impact on me. And so not just my mom, but my family was also very supportive during that time.
Yeah. Because sometimes they're not.
They're not, and they might not understand the situation,
Yeah. So sometimes, the people you need it from the most don't always. Yeah. So I'm glad that,
my family was
glad
very
you had that.
supportive of me.
Good.
Checked up on me a lot. They were just like, "Are you doing okay?" I'm like, I'm good. I mean, and we can kind of talk about that. But I mean, that's just, I think they were just kind of surprised at how well I was kind of working through things. Because I mean, obviously it was a difficult time, but I had a lot of support, not just from them. Another group I had were my group of ladies from Bible study.
Yeah.
And they were just a positive light to be with during that time. And I cannot express how important it is to have godly relationships and people who lift you up during the good times, but also during the difficult times, and be praying for you during that. It was kind of crazy. I felt like in the start of 2023, I started reconnecting with some old friends, whether it was high school or just church. And it was almost like He was preparing me by giving me the people He was placing in my life during that time, because He knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I had so many people praying. Mom had people praying for me that I didn't know had prayed for me. We come to choir rehearsal, and a few months later, after everything had happened, they were being like, we've been praying for you. And I was just like, I didn't even know you knew.
Yeah.
But, and that didn't matter at the fact that they knew, because the point of that was I had people praying for me that I didn't even know were praying for me.
Right.
So I definitely feel like those godly friendships and relationships around you are very impactful during those times.
Yeah. And with your mom, like, being that, you're an adult now, did it make you see her in that situation any different, or was it all just adding to
admire her more than I already did? Yeah. I mean, she is literally the absolute best. If you don't know my mom, you're missing out. She's a great person. But
she had good candy at trick-or-treating for Halloween.
Oh, yeah. Good candy. If you've ever had her chocolate chip cookies, they are world famous. But I just had more even respect for her to go through what she did, because, like, I've gone through it as myself. She had Jenny and I to worry about.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I don't think we could have had a better role model for us as a single parent than we did her.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that have made it hard to move forward? So we had all these great things that did help you, but what were the hard things as boulders?
Yeah, for sure. Like I've said, the shame was really hard to deal with, because I was keeping it close to myself and not really sharing a lot of what was going on with people around me. I mean, like I said, I had my family, but even then, I don't think I told them some of the true feelings that I was feeling, because, like I said, it's not a fun thing to talk about. And like I said, you just don't want people judging you. So the shame and the guilt, to a certain extent, was a lot of the things that I really had to struggle with in order to keep going.
Yeah. I just feel, and this is just, from my own life experiences, that shame and guilt, those two emotions, are emotions that we're not really supposed to be carrying around with us. God created all emotions, and I feel like shame and guilt can be something that can be used to help convict us for repentance, but they're not things we're supposed to live with. I don't think, and I've come to the opinion, very big opinion, I could be wrong, but that those are things, when people start living in that, like living in shame and living in guilt, that's not of God.
Absolutely.
Like, God has not created us to live in that. That's not the relationship He has with us. So, like, He doesn't hold His thumb over us and say, "You dirty sinner."
For sure.
Like, He doesn't that's not the relationship he modes for us. So I don't know. So I say all that because I know for that time, and I've been in a situation where it's like, it's something to recognize and know that's not something we should be living in. Like knowing that that's not God.
Not staying in it for sure.
Yeah. Look for those lights that you had.
Yes.
And hold on to those to pull you out of that, because that's not true.
Yes.
I think it's very easy for us, like people who have, I say us, people have had life trauma. Have you had life trauma? Yeah. Have I? Yes. We're out there, you've had life trauma. I think it's easy to get stuck in thinking that that's okay, or that's how it should be, or whatever, and to stay in that cave or whatever pit of that. And it's not.
No. And I definitely feel like you kind of said, I feel like that's part of the enemy's tactics.
Yeah.
When we feel that way, we are probably going to be very closed off to other people. We're giving our things to ourselves. And when we do that, we're not allowing others to pour in and minister to us.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is definitely like a tool that the enemy uses against us. Because like you said, yes, we are created to feel these things, but we're not created to live in these things.
Yeah.
So definitely, I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of people, is releasing those feelings and not living in them for sure.
Yeah. So I just think it's important you start feeling yourself doing that to know, oh, wait, stop.
Right.
Start calling out to those other people that or getting in scripture or whatever you know to do to get out of that. But for you, like, what was like, how have you overcome it? Anything like a capstone for you?
Yeah, so I just had to start reminding myself that my circumstances don't define who I am, that he does. And I would just have to have times when those thoughts would come into my head, and I would just have to combat them with who he says I am, whether it be I am his, I'm forgiven, I'm his daughter, I'm worthy of his love. And just reminding myself that I'm who he says I am and not who this world or my circumstance say that I am.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important. It is. Some people call that positive self-talk. This is the world.
Right.
Positive self-talk.
Right.
But I think it's more like, no, you're having a God.
It's more like some truth self-talk.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yes. Let's rebrand that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever feel that God was speaking to you directly? I mean, I think you mentioned with the Mobile, Alabama group, but were there other times where like he was really speaking to you, and how did you know that it was God?
Yeah, so I definitely felt like God was speaking to me during that time by placing people in my life that I could feel open and honest with about what I was going through. But the great thing about those people that were coming into my life was each of them was also reminding me that the shame I felt was the enemy putting that on me to suppress me.
Yeah.
But that there was freedom in knowing that that was never a burden, kind of like we talked about, that we were never meant to carry.
Yeah.
And to remind ourselves that I'm his and he says I'm his.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like, once again, like having people speak those words of wisdom and truth into me was a big thing. And then I also feel like God definitely, like I said, from my situation, spoke to me through worship. He was speaking to me as far as the songs. And then I just feel like my self of worship has totally changed within the last 2 years. I'm just taking the words in the songs and actually being able to apply them to my life.
Yeah.
Whether it be telling him, how thankful we are, or thankful for his promises. There are so many amazing worship songs that are going on right now.
Yeah.
But just taking those words to heart and it just being a moment between me and God. And it's crazy because I feel like within the last few months, especially when I am leading, people are coming to me now and they're saying, you can see the changes that he's made in you. And I think that's very impactful, because it's not just how you're sounding, it's the fact that people can actually see him working in your life by how you're worshiping.
Yeah.
So definitely the worship part as well.
Yeah. I know that had all been a very bitter season. Some people would even call it like a winter time, emotionally, relationally, spiritually even. What did you learn ultimately about God during that time? Like, was there any fruit that you feel had blossomed?
Yeah, so I learned that God loves me despite my circumstances, and that he defines who I am, not my circumstances. He's a loving God that only wants the best for us, even when it's hard for us to understand why things happen a certain way that we wouldn't have wanted for ourselves. Because like I said earlier, I was praying that my marriage would be restored.
Yeah.
That's not obviously what happened. But at the same time, now that I'm on this side of it, I'm so thankful that I trusted what I felt like was his will in this situation, because I don't think I would be where I'm at today had that not happened.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely thankful for that. And I felt like I've grown so much in my faith and dependency on God in this season, because a lot of times that was all I had when I went home, because it was just me. Yeah, I don't have any pets. I don't have any kids. It's just me and God in the quiet. So I was thankful for that time just to find rest in Him. Yeah, that was a real important season. And then I really feel like I've learned what it truly means to trust and depend on Him. Even we can't see the bigger picture of what's ahead, because like I said, I when all this was happening, I was really struggling with the unknown, because I'm a teacher, I'm a planner.
Yeah.
I like to know what's coming.
We have to do that.
And the fact that I didn't know what it was going to look like was very terrifying, but I just had to trust that He was going to guide the way through all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if there was someone tomorrow or even this afternoon, they're like, Joanna, I'm going through a divorce. What do I do? Or even I'm going through this big life trauma.
Yeah.
What do I do? What would you say to them?
The first thing I would tell them is to find yourself a godly community to surround yourself with, who's going to be there to celebrate those mountaintops and pray you through the valleys. Yeah. Because we all have things we go through, but the thing is it's a whole lot harder to go through those things alone versus when you have people that are going to be there to lift you up whenever you are going through those difficult times. So I would definitely say to find you a godly community would be a big thing. And just to remember that we serve a loving God who sees us as He created us and not how the world sees us during whatever situation we may be going through, because it's not always divorce. Mine was divorce, but it could be addiction. It could be gambling. There are so many different things that we go through right now. So just to remember that just because life may not always be going good, we still serve a good God. Yes. And to just be the plan for our lives. I'm so thankful that despite whatever circumstances we're going on in life, He never changes. Yeah, so definitely. I think that's a big thing. And then these situations that we go through can turn into a testimony of His goodness and faithfulness to share with others. I never thought I would be in this situation sharing about divorce, but here I am. But I am so thankful, like I said, for this opportunity to share my story and how His goodness and faithfulness and His promises brought me through my time. And I hope that that's been impactful to others, whether it be whatever situation they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely think, by you sharing your story is definitely magnifying how good He is. And that's part of why I do what I do. Because I know part of my mission really is to flood the internet, flood the interwebs and the radio space with God's goodness and what He does.
You do a great job. You're doing a great job. I've loved all the other episodes I've gotten to listen to. So if y'all haven't listened yet, go back and listen to some.
I do have a treasure trove. They are to me. I really do treasure every conversation I get to have. But Joanna, I'm just so thankful that we finally got to do this. And I'm so glad you got to come out. I know what you shared today wasn't always fun, but I really do think that's been impactful for somebody. And just thank you for coming out and sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've really appreciated you just allowing me this venue to share my story. And hopefully, like I said, this is not glorifying me or anything that I've done, but glorifying God and the way He's worked through my life. So I'm really glad I got to share this today. My name is Joanna, and this is the story of the middle.
I'm your host, Brandy Bostic, and you've been listening to the Up From the Muck podcast. For merch or more uplifting stories, please visit my website, upfromthemuck.com.
Psalms 40, verse 2. He brought me up from the desolate pit, out of the muddy clay, and set my feet on the rock, making my steps secure.